So, welcome to Queer Politics. I'm Drew.
And I'm Ellie.
And today we acknowledge how stuffy and scary politics can be. So we're dumbing it down. That's the wrong word. Making it simpler for our queer audience and our non-queer audience as well.
Everyone.
We love our rainbow community. So today's podcast is on an interesting individual, wouldn't you say?
Andy Burnham.
Yes, he obviously is very big in the news at the moment. He is currently the Mayor of Manchester, quite keen to get back into Parliament, it seems. So I guess if you didn't know, Andy Burnham is the Mayor of Manchester. He was previously an MP, both in Tony Blair's, I believe, and Gordon Brown's cabinet when they were Prime Minister. During that time, he signed a lot of private contracts with private contractors whilst he was House Secretary. So his new thing, Manchesterism, which is about public control, again, is basically led by PFIs. The ones doing the journeys, and the bus company is still private, but it's basically managed by the local council. So
it's sort of socialist. So his whole thing of Manchesterism was socialism that's business friendly. So it's offering sort of socialist schemes with a lot of like private investment and like private companies doing those socialist schemes, like the buses.
Yeah, so weirdly, he told Westminster to do one.
Westminster.
Oh God, if I said that. I used to argue with people about that when I was younger.
Westminster.
That's a good start, isn't it? So Westminster. So he kept the buses in Manchester at £2. The routes, the schedule and the control is under the mayoralty. But the actual companies driving the buses and the employees are of a private company. So the private company still gets paid, I believe, by the local council, which is a step in the right direction. But as far as I'm concerned, not good enough.
Exactly.
It does seem very kind of the same. I do see him being another Starmer, promising the world, Corbyn in a suit and all that, and not delivering or lying just to get into position of authority. So he has flip-flopped on the EU as well. Although, to be fair, his constituency that he's trying to win in is very pro-Brexit. So maybe...
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the issue. So I've got my thing here. So
yeah, we're new to this podcasting thing.
Me every time. So he had previously been quite sort of in support of the EU, but with the leadership battle in Makerfield.
That's the one.
Makerfield, yep. That was a very pro-Brexit area, so he seems to have gone back now and said that basically democracy needs to be respected.
Even if you're dead.
Yeah, fair enough, but you can't really be rejoining the EU and then say democracy has to be respected in respect to the vote to leave the EU. So basically we don't know what his stand is. It could be anything. He could be pro-EU, he could not. We don't really know.
There will be a later podcast about the European Union as well. We have that planned.
And a lot of podcasts about random politicsy things.
Yes, exactly that as well. Where I'm concerned, I think that most of the majority is dead now. I didn't get to vote on it. I was too young.
My nan... she got driven from the care home to vote for Brexit.
Driven from the care home. Bless her.
Yeah. She died in 2020, so never really got to see what she voted for.
What do you think she voted for?
Oh, I mean, she definitely voted to leave. Yeah,
Sad.
100%. No, she talked about it all the time. Yeah, she was, sadly quite racist old lady.
So we did two versions of research. Mine was very bullet pointy, relying on the fact I read the news every 5 minutes. And I look at other sources because you know how far the news goes these days. So Ellie has done a much more organised piece of research. So I gave a general gist based on what I had done, and Ellie has a whole system. So I'm gonna switch over to the one and only Ellie for this bit.
Thank you. So I'm going to have to be like reading from my laptop here. Let's move this.
Oh yes, hashtag locate the camera.
Yeah, our super professional setup in my spare bedroom.
Yep.
So as this is queer politics, we're going to firstly look at Andy Burnham's LGBT stance, or LGBTQIA+, I should say.
Yes.
So in 2019, he co-signed a letter to Penny Mordaunt, who was the Equalities Minister at the time under Boris Johnson's government.
All PM for PM. Do you remember that?
Yeah, a real throwback. A real throwback. So he co-signed this letter urging the government to faster implement changes to the Gender Recognition Act. And this was the act which would allow people to self-identify and change their gender without the need for going through getting like a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, which is a disgusting term, and proof of having lived in their acquired gender for at least 2 years. They needed 2 medical reports, including the diagnosis, and they have to make a legal commitment to live in their acquired gender permanently, which I kind of think is a little bit insane, because people should be allowed to transition and detransition if they want to without having like legal consequences. Yeah, but anyway, so Andy Burnham, 2019, signed this letter. The plan was ultimately dropped by Boris Johnson's government in 2020, and Scotland tried to allow it, but then they blocked that as well.
Scotland, I believe, also tried it again when Rishi Sunak was PM, didn't they?
Yes.
Got blocked.
That might have been when it got blocked, though, because it was such a like crazy time of going from one Tory Prime Minister to the other.
This is true.
And I didn't get the exact details of who was PM at that point. But anyway, so basically that shows he was pretty in support of trans rights at that point. In 2022, he was in a meeting with Manchester's Youth Combined Authority and was asked about whether trans women should use women's toilets. And I saw this because LBC did a bit of a gotcha article talking about how like ridiculously woke Andy Burnham is. And for anyone who actually cares about LGBT rights, it's really sad. So what he said during this meeting when asked that question: clearly there is a group of people who do not feel that toilets should be a safe space. Oh wait, no, hold on, let me start that again.
Yeah.
Messed it up again. So he said, clearly there is a group of people who do feel that toilets should be a safe space only for women, and there should not be anyone biologically a male allowed in that space. I don't think that's a majority view. I think that's a minority view, and quite a small minority view actually. But it is a view, so you can't completely ignore it. Possibly they might be women who have experienced male violence at some point in their life. I don't know, that's one way of looking at it. The idea that people are falsely portraying their gender in a different way just because they want to abuse a woman's space or encroach on women's safety, maybe it happens, but you're talking a tiny number of people. So why are we allowing everyone to get into this really polarized and terribly hateful debate about these issues? I'm going to make it really plain. I support trans rights and I want that to be known.
See, that is what we want politicians to be saying. But we want to say it now, and it's not easy something to say to get votes, right?
Exactly. And I just find it mad, because this was 2022, so this was before the Supreme Court ruling that states when woman refers to sex at birth. And it's just so sad that this very sort of supportive statement, which is kind of common sense for anyone who doesn't just blanket hate trans people, that sort of common sense status is now being used as like a gotcha for like how, I don't know, woke. I think there was like a Telegraph article that said his like woke virtue signaling is coming back to bite him or something, again talking about this quote, which is really sad, because like that's not the reason that we have violence against women and girls. It's not men dressing up as women going into toilets, or trans people.
I mean, theoretically, if a man is going into a public toilet to take advantage of a woman. This is going to sound really crude, bear with me, but he's not going to pretend to be a woman and put on a dress to go in a woman's toilet.
Yeah, like
they're publicly accessible.
There's
he will
not
do
like
it anyway.
a guard at the door. Like, you can literally just walk in there. If you wanted to go into a women's toilet and abuse women as a man, you could do that.
Exactly.
Like, putting on a dress isn't going to change that.
And I feel like a lot of the argument, they never talk about trans men.
No,
and that's not me saying what about men or anything like that.
The ever forgotten trans men. It's. I mean, the whole thing is so stupid, and it's horrible that it's got to this point, but unfortunately it has.
Because where trans men are concerned, obviously they are female according to some people's logic.
Yeah.
But they don't look it.
No, and the thing that's completely mad is that, like, any cis man could just walk, like, under the new guidance we've had now, saying that you have to use, like, the toilets for your sex assigned at birth. Any normal cis man can just walk into a women's toilet and say that they're trans, which is why they're in there. Because trans men look like men. They look super, like, the hormones give you a beard and, like, big muscles, and, like, it's... I think trans men can have a easier time passing than trans women often can. But still, like, so many trans women, people wouldn't know. Like, I think there's so many TERFs who have been in a toilet with a trans woman and they just didn't know, because you just don't. You literally don't. Like, why would you? Why do you care about what other people's genitals are?
People just want to have a piss. Go piss, go, innit? You know?
Exactly.
Like, it shouldn't be this whole issue.
Yeah.
There has been no case where a man has, that I'm aware of, that anyone is aware of, because it would be all over the news, of a man saying he's trans to attack a woman in a toilet.
Yeah, like, it just doesn't happen. Anyway, back to Andy Burnham.
Yes.
So, back on trans issues. So more recently, he spoke again on LBC in the light of the interim guidance that was released from the EHRC. And I think that's right. I always want to say ECHR.
Yeah, that's a part of human rights.
Thing.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, the EHRC, the recent guidance which came out, which basically excludes trans people from everywhere, and it's horrible. But he said that he thinks he makes it more confusing, and that he didn't think the interim guidance has taken us forward, and pleaded with people to take a breath and not jump to conclusions. He said that the guidance makes it clear that trans people are protected by law from discrimination.
Which it doesn't.
Well, yeah, and that's the issue, because it says that they're protected by law until a cis woman complains, and then just all of a sudden they're allowed to be excluded.
And the words protected from law do not necessarily mean they're protected in law. There is no further guidance, there's no clarification, it's just a grandstanding statement. Trans people will be completely alienated by this. And this issue has only come up a couple of years ago. Like, if you think Theresa May was progressing trans rights and no one batted an eyelid, why now are they taking advantage of the instability in the world to try and attack trans people like this? Because it was not an issue 6-7 years ago to the level it is now.
Culture war needs a victim.
It does. It needs a scapegoat. And they just go down the list. That's my fear with the reform government. They'll just go down the list until they find, till they don't, they never want to run out of someone to target.
Exactly. I was quite disappointed by this take, because he really could have said a lot more than that. He could have used it to actually speak up in support of trans people and say that he disagreed with the ruling, and he didn't. He basically said a whole lot of nothing. It could be interpreted as support for the community, or it could be interpreted as support for the new guidance.
It's a very Lib Dem response.
Yeah, exactly.
Weirdly though, the Lib Dems have actually done quite a bit talking about this.
Yeah, they've been really good. Yeah, I'm properly impressed with them right now.
They spoke in the debate in Parliament the other day.
Yeah. The debate, which has upset a lot of Green members.
Yes, we have been rather upset.
We didn't have a single Green MP there, but I am hopeful. Apparently, it wasn't a planned thing. It was just sort of a thing that happened on the day.
And they have co-signed a letter.
Exactly.
And even any chances.
Have you seen Rachel's statement about it?
Rachel...
Millwall, the
the deputy leader. Yes, sorry. There's more than one Rachel in the Green Party, guys. Come on, we've got one in our local area.
Rachel. She put a statement out, which was really good. Very nice. But yeah, so I'm hoping that basically there were lots of Lib Dems there because on the day there happened to be lots of Lib Dems just hanging about in Parliament.
This isn't an endorsement for Lib Dems, by the way. We're just giving them some respect for where one off.
I'm just putting some excuses out there for the Greens, basically, because currently we only have 4 working MPs.
5.
We've got 4 because Carla Denny's on a break.
Oh, she is. She's on sick leave, isn't she?
She is on sick leave.
To be fair, she's been working for like 10 years straight, hasn't she?
She's brilliant. I
love
have no
her.
issue with her taking time off, and I hope that she is well.
She is the one who won her co-leadership. She, in my opinion, without her...
Yeah, she was great.
Adrian Ramsey wouldn't have got in.
You're not a big fan.
I'm not, no. We all have our favourites and we all have the ones we don't like as much. And Adrian Ramsey and who's the one in the House of Lords? Jenny Jones? Something of Morecambe. She's got great curly hair.
I don't really pay attention to people in the House of Lords, to be honest.
It's ironic. There's 2 Green members in the House of Lords. Natalie Bennett, which I like.
I do like Natalie Bennett. She's great.
Although I hate the entire institution House of Lords.
Mm-hmm.
Second elected chamber. # democracy. But the other one I'm not a huge fan of.
Okay, back to Andy Burnham on his sort of very wet blanket approach to trans rights. So it made me think of the paradox of tolerance or intolerance. I can't remember which one it is.
I think it's tolerance because they're saying...
Paradox of tolerance. Basically says that you cannot, to be in a tolerant society, you cannot tolerate hate or discrimination, because if you don't fight against those things, then they will take over and they will become the sort of standard. So basically being a centrist and taking no stance against like LGBT hate, crime or whatever.
Lib Dems and Labour were talking about you.
Or, racism, all that kind of stuff. If you just sit there quietly, the nasty people will win. And you do not have to be tolerant of intolerance within a tolerant society.
You may want to replay that back some, because some people don't seem to get that in society, do they? And that is the problem. There's this whole discussion about tolerance of the left. We are tolerant of all sorts of different people, but we are not tolerant of intolerance.
Yeah.
That is the issue that people aren't quite grasping with some of us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you agree with a racist statement, if you say something homophobic, if you're back in the times where that's so gay as an adjective that you use to slur someone, we're not going to be particularly tolerant about that.
No. And we shouldn't have to be, because there's like being tolerant of someone is like accepting their religion or like their race or like where they're from or like, I don't know, some weird things they might do that are unusual, but they don't hurt anyone. Whereas that is not the same as being tolerant to someone who's literally a Nazi and is screaming for like the deaths of people. And you're tolerant of other people. You're not tolerant of hateful ideologies that those other people hold. So basically Andy Burnham on LGBT rights. Don't really know. He has been quite supportive in the past, but it seems that the closer he gets to power, the more quiet he becomes, which is incredibly disappointing.
So how are we comparing him to spineless Starmer? We're allowed, that's an opinion. Love to say that. No libel suing Keir.
I don't think Keir Starmer's going to sue you.
If you want to lose more Labour members, continue attacking the left, because that's working really well for you.
I don't really know what this is the thing with Starmer. I basically know nothing about what his personal views are on anything, because he seemed to run on a platform of vague change.
He kind of looks permanently constipated. Yeah, like his face is so robotic and it doesn't move. It's like he's holding a massive crap.
He has not got great charisma, which is something that Andy Burnham would be a lot better at.
He does have some level of likability. Yeah, I'm indifferent.
He's like the most likable, the most liked politician, isn't he?
That's quite sad.
Yeah, but sadly, I think like Farage is like the second most liked, which is just
that's even worse. Yes.
Horrifying.
Maybe one day, if Burnham starts growing up a little bit more with the Labour Party, I will not hate him.
Yeah,
it'll just be a level of disdain.
I just think that
tolerance. Maybe I could tolerate him.
There you go. We tolerate him. So I spoke about I researched 2 other areas of Andy Burnham, and one of them was housing. and the other one was universal basic income, which I sort of got to from housing. So as Manchester mayor, he has been super ambitious, and he's set out to end the housing crisis in Greater Manchester within a decade, which is incredibly ambitious.
Indeed.
But I quite like that, because I do think we need politicians who have ambitious targets and ambitious plans, and I think that's a lot of the reason why people kind of hate Keir Starmer, because he's offered he came in on a sort of mandate of, I will offer change, but then the way he's doing it is this like tiny little incremental change, which people don't really notice, and I don't know, I just think we can do better than that, to be honest. So the plan was set out in 2024, and by 2037 they wanted to have 30,000 new council homes in Manchester. By 2028 they wanted to have 10,000 of those built, which I don't think is going particularly to plan. The first load of building went quite well, but it has really slowed down. They created this organisation called the GM, so Greater Manchester Housing First Unit, which was coming up with the plan to deliver these houses, which I couldn't actually find online, which was unfortunate.
Maybe it's just a nickname or...
Well, no, I'll go into that, because it is actually, it's an organisation which has done some great work, but the thing about them creating the plan of how the 10,000 council homes will be built, I just couldn't find anything on that. So as part of his mayoral campaign, he also said he would ask central government to devolve powers to suspend the right to buy on new build council homes and in areas of the greatest housing need.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. You learn something new every day.
Yeah, so this is really important in Manchester, because since the lovely Thatcher did the right to buy, Manchester's lost nearly 24,000.
She's a Resident Evil character.
Is she?
Yeah, they made a Resident Evil character that looked like her.
Oh, that's
so good.
Yeah, awful woman. Anyway, so yeah, Manchester's lost nearly 24,000 homes to the right to buy scheme, and the council has actually been spending an absolute fortune buying back homes that have been sold under the right to buy as little as 5 years ago.
Right to buy obviously being the ability to buy houses that you live in as a council house, buy them from the council, which
at a huge discount, up to 70% in some cases.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, here we go. Qualifying, this is the Manchester's one. Qualifying council tenants can buy their current home under the right to buy and can qualify for up to 70% discount or a maximum of £82,800.
That's more than half what my mortgage is going to be.
Yeah.
The thing is with right to buy, I guess in hindsight everyone thought, oh, this is a great idea. But if you're selling off loads of housing stock that the poor need because they can't afford a mortgage, and you don't replace the ones you've lost, and the population grows, more people need social housing, but there is less social housing available.
Yeah.
Common sense.
And that's basically the problem.
Lacking.
That Manchester has been selling off all of their council homes, and they have not been building new ones to replace them.
See, for a Labour kind of heartland, I'm quite surprised that they rolled that in straight when it was a thing, because obviously it was a big Tory thing, wasn't it? Thatcher introduced it.
I don't think anyone got a choice though. I think they just had to do it.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I don't think areas have got a choice really. But also I think at the time, like just before, if you think before Thatcher came in, when we had the post-war consensus, we had done a shit ton of building and a shit ton of council homes had been built. So I guess you could understand politicians thinking that that level of building would continue.
Yeah.
So then, like, what was being lost under the right to buy would be sort of built. But that was, 40 years ago now.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem...
plenty of time to realise it doesn't work. But yeah, so that was quite interesting. Andy Burnham did ask central government and they said no, which is not very surprising.
The unity of the Labour Party, am I right?
Exactly. Exactly. So GM Housing First, who I mentioned earlier, this is actually really interesting and I think is a really great scheme. So they primarily function to try and end homelessness in the region. So it's Manchester and sort of a little bit out of Manchester as well. And they've been trialling a pioneering scheme where homeless people are offered permanent housing as a first step. So what currently happens in most authorities is if you're homeless, you'll be offered temporary accommodation, and that temporary accommodation will depend on what kind of like life circumstances you're in. So if you have got sort of drug problems or alcohol problems or like convictions, they will need you to engage with the services that are being offered to you on a condition for your housing. And then you'll be in the temporary housing, whatever it may be, like a shelter or like, I don't know, a bed sit, or like sometimes it's even like a hotel room that's being funded. But you know, like asylum style hotels, not nice hotels, like
Oh gosh,
a shitty old building that used to be a hotel. And you'll stay there for years until they find you a council house and you'll be on the list. And people will often end up back homeless again because these aren't great environments for people who are trying to get off drugs, living with lots of other people who've got issues. But basically, the scheme that they've been trialling in Manchester, people are offered housing as a first step. So that's the first step, and it is not contingent on them engaging with treatment or support services. And people are able to choose where in Manchester they want to live, which is really good for support networks, because often people just get housed like miles away from where they used to live, meaning that they can't see friends and family, which is often really important when people are in the kind of circumstances that lead to homelessness. The permanent housing is then used as a base to offer wraparound support for people, so social workers and like rehabilitation charities, all that kind of stuff. The scheme started as a pilot with a target to rehouse 300 people over 3 years. They hit that target, and the tenancy sustainment rate after the 3-year pilot was 81%,
wow,
which is huge. Homelessness is often a sort of cyclical thing for people. So yeah, that is a really, really good result. And the scheme has now been expanded to cover all boroughs across Manchester. And GMHF, alongside other partners, have recently built the UK's first of its kind village to support people out of homelessness. It features 40 mini homes, which give residents their own front door and private accommodation, but also includes shared facilities such as a sports area, mini allotment, and a village hall. Residents receive structured support from a skilled resettlement team covering areas such as employment, financial management, and independent living. And the employment pathways are supported through partnerships with more than 20 local companies. And it was really interesting reading up about this scheme, because I think this sort of ties into the like Manchesterism and the like business-friendly socialism, because this scheme had so many different people working on it. Like I think it was like 160 different local businesses. And most of them, or many of the local businesses, donated their expertise and materials. And the main contractor, Vermont Construction, actually built it all at no profit. It cost 6.3 million to build, which worked out to like 120k per like dwelling.
So if they're building it at no profit, it's a cost, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's quite an interesting thing, and it's a really good thing to see coming from sort of Andy Burnham's mayorship.
Yeah, the thing is, I struggle with the term business friendly business friendly socialism.
Yeah.
Because obviously socialism is the workers owning the means of production, worker-run cooperatives, power to the workers,
Exactly.
right? So a capitalistic business with 3 shareholders who own everything,
Yeah.
who manipulate the employees, pay them terrible wages. It's a conflict.
Yeah.
So it's about balancing that, isn't it?
Yeah, and I always struggle with this because I just think like, okay, but surely you could hire that like electrician. Like surely the council could just hire that electrician and they could do it, and then you wouldn't need like someone skimming profit off the top.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I'm sort of uncertain as to how well Andy Burnham has done in terms of housing. I think he's set out quite ambitious targets, but it seems that a lot of the actual council houses aren't being built at the rate that they thought they would be built. But there is an awful lot of like luxury building going on in Manchester. Lots of luxury flats that are being built and then immediately bought up by massive companies that are renting them out. So,
is it a case of better than Starmer? Probably the lesser of the evils,
again,
I think.
I don't really know what Starmer wants, or
I don't think anybody does.
No, and
I don't know. Does even Starmer knows what he actually wants?
I don't think so.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Just Peter Mandelson and tell him what he thinks.
Yeah, Daddy Peter. That's he's daddy to Keir, isn't he? Keir does as he's told, like a whipping boy.
Exactly. Interesting things that he's doing in Manchester for homelessness, but is this actually going to be sort of expanded to cover the rest of the country, or is it going to be a case of he gets in as PM and goes, oh no, the finances have said we can't do it, the bond markets, blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, Daddy bond markets, guys.
So yeah, who knows really. I also wanted to talk about universal basic income because Andy Burnham has been very supportive of universal basic income.
I like it as a concept. I just struggle. I'm lefty as they come, so this kind of concept I love, obviously. I struggle with its implementation.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult thing. It's being trialed in a lot of places, but it's I like the model where it's given to everyone, but it's taxed out of people. So you give it to everyone. Every single human in the UK would get it. But if you're on a high income, you would go back in your taxes.
Isn't that how child benefit works?
Yeah, exactly how child benefit works.
That's the one that everyone gets.
Yeah, every parent gets that.
Yeah.
And then once you go over a certain income, your taxes, you just sort of comes back in your taxes.
And you'll never have to pay more than just paying it back, basically.
Yes. So, yes, Andy Burnham has been supportive of universal basic income and said at some point, I'm not sure when, a universal basic income will put a solid foundation beneath everybody so that they can have a life with security and stop worrying about everything.
That'll be the day, won't it?
Yeah. In 2020, he suggested the government should consider introducing UBI to address health and economic resilience and aid the country's recovery from coronavirus. He said that the pandemic has revealed how hugely unequal the UK is and argued that many people simply were not able to protect their own health because of their poor working conditions.
That reminds me, an employer I had, so at the very start of COVID, you could only get tests if you had symptoms.
Oh, yeah.
When the tests had first come out. So I had an employer, I won't name the employer because, I don't want to be sued, but I still have the email, I came across it the other day actually, I still have the evidence. But they wanted me to lie, say I had COVID symptoms, so I could go into work. I said no, I quit, and then I got a job that was actually where I went to uni. So I didn't have a job that just got me by in the summer and then loads of volunteering jobs, jobs around the uni. I had a stable one I could work at, and then with the extras on top of it. It was just easier for me, and that gave me the push to go from seasonal to part-time. Because, first to second year, I had a decent loan, so working was kind of an extra. And then in my last year, that's more complicated. I had to finance myself, basically. So having that work experience obviously really helped me.
Yeah.
But yes, if an employer tells you to do something that you don't agree with, that is controversial, that may actually break the law, try and avoid it. Yes.
Don't do it.
Don't do it is the piece of advice. And I know that's easier said than done, but they shouldn't be putting you in that position.
So basically this was in the context of furlough ending and people going back to work and it being sort of like, are poorer people actually going to take time off work if they've got COVID because it'll be unpaid? So Burnham's sort of push for UBI was in the context of trying to sort of prevent COVID being too much of an issue because that way people wouldn't be quite so reliant on their work. And he said, I would urge the Chancellor and Prime Minister, which was Rishi Sunak at this point, I believe, to address the issue of health and economic resilience in some of our poorest areas. I think they should be talking about a real living wage across the country and also potentially even a universal basic income. So he wasn't mega supportive of that.
No.
Because we have seen with this virus, it's been very clearly exposed. It is hugely unequal in our country, and there are some people who simply were not able to protect their own health because of their poor working conditions. And Sadiq Khan also backed a proposal for UBI at the time, but Keir Starmer, who was leader of Labour at that point, said no. Here, their 2019 manifesto
Oh, I miss those
included
days.
proposal.
Jeremy
I
Corbyn's
know.
Labour
Yeah.
manifesto.
So
That was the first manifesto I voted for.
yeah, yeah. It
The
included
last time
proposals to
I
pilot
voted.
policy in several towns and cities across the UK, which I don't think has actually been done yet.
No.
So yeah, Andy Burnham signed a joint letter to the PM, which was signed by over 170 MPs and
Wow.
Lords calling for UBI during the pandemic. And this is a quote from that letter. It says, "The app-based driver is not paid when there is no work, nor is the 0 hours warehouse worker, the children's entertainer, or the agency-supplied care worker. Many people do not have employers incentivized by government to keep paying them. A universal basic income would be far more effective than subsidizing company payroll." And I actually agree with that so much because I think if you've listened to any of Gary Stevenson, he often talks about how during COVID there was just this massive transference of wealth from the government to rich people, essentially.
Well, they got richer, didn't they?
So much richer, so much richer. Whereas if instead of just doing the furlough scheme and just paying companies like, I don't know, Tesco or Microsoft or whatever, who really could have paid themselves for their employees, if you'd given it to people, like I think it's like, isn't it like 20 grand per person or something was spent on furlough? I need to look that up, but it was a huge amount of money per person. And just think, if you'd just given that to people rather than companies, that could have made a massive difference.
Yeah, because the companies gave it to the employees from the government. So
yeah,
I didn't realise. I thought that the government paid like 80% of the pay, and then the employer paid the other 20. I didn't think it was they got that amount per person, and then they.
No. So that's just like what it equaled out.
Oh, that was how that
when you
right.
like looked at how much money was spent out on sort of furlough and other like propping up schemes. So yeah, back onto UBI. This is from Andy Burnham's mayoral manifesto in 2024. And he said, "The evidence from our Housing First pilot," which is the pilot I talked about where they just gave people houses instead of making them engage with services first. So the evidence from our Housing First pilot is that if you set people up to succeed, the vast majority will, and in turn, that saves money on crisis provisions and other public services. For this reason, we believe the logical next step after the success of our Housing First pilot is to bring forward a basic income pilot. This would fit well with our new Live Well concept and would test whether a different, more preventative way of supporting people would lead to better use of public funds. And the Live Well concept is basically a thing they've been doing within Manchester that shifts. It's a way of like shifting the way like social welfare is done from the traditional sanction-heavy kind of cruel benefits that often sort of penalise people for working and are kind of mean and just sort of treat people like criminals.
A lot of a lot of discourse in the media seems to talk about these figures that we spend on welfare and social expenditure, right? What they don't tell you is when they say, "Oh, we spend more on benefits than we have tax revenue coming
triple
in."
lock.
It is the triple lock. There that goes, because it's all part of the same bracket. Because pension and pension credit are benefits. Right, hear me out. This is not me going against pensioners. I love the old people. They've done their bit. But it is still a benefit because it's paid for via taxation. You pay your taxes into the system and you get something out of it, right? The triple lock is a way of subsidising it. Otherwise, what you've paid into the pension in real terms now, because you started your pension, 40 years ago, would not be of worth. It wouldn't get you as far as it would have done if you'd have that money at the start. So the triple lock is to keep your money up in terms of real terms, which is fair enough. But in that big figure they say where we spend more on that than tax revenue on benefits, that includes pensions and pension credits. 58% of that figure, in the most recent figures, it was 55%. Now 58% of that figure goes to pensioners. So 3% of that money has moved to pensioners as well.
It's a huge amount. And I think when people think of like benefits, they don't think of pensioners. They think of like, I don't know, single mothers and people who don't work. But either way, like, we need a social welfare state in order to have a functioning society where people aren't just like dying in the gutters. It's not a bad thing to spend money on welfare. And I mean, I really like this live well thing. It moves away from the sanction heavy cruel benefits and towards a system based on trust that gives people financial security and works on the assumption that adults can make their own financial decisions. And I think that's really important because I think something I find really gross, that you often hear sort of spoken about is, we should move to like a food stamps based system. We shouldn't be giving people money because then they can just spend it all on like cigarettes or like whatever, or like alcohol. We should make it that they have to spend this money on food. And I just think that's really gross because, like, let people make their own decisions. Like, they might make bad decisions, but ultimately adults should be able to make their own decisions. So on the 13th of May 2025, Andy Burnham spoke and supported the launch of the GM Living Income Campaign. So this is an independent campaign that is supported, it's a collaboration between four main organisations: the New Economics Foundation, the Middleton Cooperating, the Mama Health and Poverty Partnership, and our agency CIC. So the last three are all social enterprises, sort of within or like around Manchester or out, I don't actually know. They're all social enterprises with a goal to improve the quality of lives and reduce poverty. And the NEF is a economic organisation that its aim is to create a new economy that works for people and within environmental limits. And I wanted to talk a bit about them because it's very interesting.
Did Zach recently talk about the
I
NEF?
imagine he has done. So their three main ambitions. First one is a fast and fair transition. Build a fast and fair transition to a green economy through a deep and equitable transformation to address climate change. Second, guarantee economic security for all. Guarantee economic security for all by rebuilding effective and sustainable public services to give everyone access to life's essentials. So that to me sounds like making all of the things you need to live, like housing and transport, free.
It comes into nationalisation of public infrastructure,
Exactly.
which I have been calling for since I knew what it meant in 2019. It's not earlier than that.
Big thing for the Greens. And then the third one is shift power to people and communities. Shift power to people and communities through democratic ownership of the economy and devolving political power. Sounds a lot like communism to somebody who doesn't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so I found it really interesting that Andy Burnham was happy to support this campaign. So the campaign is, I think, have I got it here somewhere? They want to give people, it's like £1,600 a month. So basically, it's a trial scheme, 200 households or people, giving them £1,600 a month, and just seeing how it goes. It's currently in the planning stage, and they haven't actually raised the funds to run the scheme. And Andy Burnham has since been urged by campaigners to fully support this scheme and said that like he's in support of it, but he's also interested in seeing what other schemes there are.
That gives me a bit of a red flag, and not the good kind of always socialist power to the working people red flag, because that's red, but a red flag is in ick.
Yeah, so it sounds
he won't
like
commit.
He's like in theory on paper, he's behind it on paper, but when it comes to actually sort of doing it, it seems that he sort of rolls it back. Yeah, so it's really hard because I think when you look at Andy Burnham and what he's done as a mayor, there's some really good stuff in there. There's some really like socialist things, like all the stuff he's done with the buses, trying to build lots of social houses, council homes, and being supportive of universal basic income. But he recently said, after the bond markets went a little bit mad, that he promised to preserve Rachel Reeves's economic rules, fiscal rules, following a reaction from the bond market, which means in reality we are very unlikely to see any kind of meaningful socialist schemes on a national scale because bond markets don't like them.
This is a message to the bond markets, right? Are you listening? You've got your big people ears on, right? Listen carefully. Public infrastructure management and ownership by the public is not going to cost your business. It's not going to destabilize the economy. Public infrastructure includes transports. How do you think your employees are getting to work?
Yeah, literally. Well, I guess they don't.
Businesses do better when employees are more productive.
Yeah.
That is good for all of the financial markets, right? Productivity going up is good for bonds. It all connects, and you know it does, right? I don't know, because sometimes I'm like, okay, maybe they are reacting justifiably to saying things like the volatility of oil and things like that. Fair enough. But when it comes to reacting to some things, I wonder if the reaction is actually in a way to deliberately destabilise the government's objectives.
That's what I think as well. And I do think, like, I don't know, like, I just don't fully understand it all. So
I mean, in a realistic way,
opinion on it, but it feels to me like we are a little bit too sort of, like it's meant to be like we're meant to have democracy. It's meant to be the voters who are ultimately represented by government, and government's meant to work for the voters, not for the bond markets. And it seems at the moment like the bond markets are just the be all and end all.
Yeah.
And it annoys me, because I think ultimately with a lot of socialism, it comes back to the, like, you've got to spend money to make money thing. So, like, you invest in things like free childcare, free transport, social housing, and then in return, people are able to go to work, they're able to start businesses, again with like universal basic income. Like, the amount of people who would be like, oh, I'd love to do this as a dream, like if I didn't have to worry about money, I'd do this. Like, people want to do stuff. Not everyone just wants to sit on their arse and do nothing.
It's very demotivating being in the workplace at the moment as well, because obviously no one wants to sit around. People like working, right? As you say. They like to be productive. But when the pay that they get is terrible, when the working conditions they get are appalling, when their costs are skyrocketing, they're paying £80 a train ticket to London, and all those kind of transport costs, even though they're doing well and they've got a relatively decent job on what is considered a good salary, they can still barely afford the essentials.
Yeah.
I can afford a one-bedroom flat that is basically a cupboard. And that's still going to be a stretch. And I earn not far off the median salary. Back in the day, a postman could afford a house on one person's salary.
It's just mad.
Because house prices skyrocketed over time. Wages did not. And we need someone who is going to do something about that.
Yeah, he's actually going to tackle that.
If he is going to want to be leader of the country, then he needs to have some plans there. And I'm not saying he should make sure that the value of houses goes down and completely crashes. I'm saying that we need to value our staff more, value our employees more, and pay them better wages. Yeah. There was a study that was done that I see No Justice MTG, Helena, talking about a lot, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But she talks about how most companies could afford the minimum wage going up to £15 an hour.
Yeah, I think the idea that there's these like hundreds of thousands of small businesses that are like a 12p raise in the minimum wage away from bankruptcy is just, I think it's just wrong. And I also, that so much of it to me just comes back to, like, if you can't afford to pay your workers properly, then surely your business is not succeeding. And like that's a key part of having a successful business, is being able to make enough money to actually pay your workers. And if you can't do that, then your business is not succeeding. Yeah. And that's okay. Like, not every business has to succeed, but you do have to pay your workers like a living wage.
Yeah, and I mean, perhaps some companies on the smaller level perhaps would get some support with things like that as part of government initiatives and things, right? I'm not against smaller businesses getting support, right? But when you have a company like Amazon that has its employees pissing in bottles and doesn't think it can afford to raise the minimum wage, when its CEO, big boss, baldy bollocks Bezos says, oh, I pay so much in taxes. No, he doesn't. Yeah, my effective tax rate will be higher than his.
He got like a tax credit, like a child tax credit one year, because his income tax was nothing. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Oh, God.
But anyway, I
apologise to the ball community for associating you with Jeff Bezos, by the way. Sorry, that was mean of me.
Back to the topic at hand. Yes. Burnham. So basically, I think he's a great mayor. I think he's done a good job, but I don't necessarily think that he is going to really bring us anything that different to what Starmer has brought us. it feels to me like it's a bit of a sort of reach within Labour to increase their chances of being elected for a second term. Change the PM, change it to someone who's more likeable than Starmer. But to be honest, I just don't know if that is going to be enough to make everyone vote for them, because I'm not going to vote for them even if Andy Burnham is PM. Like, that's not going to change my position on them. I don't think they go far enough in like left-wing policies, and I think they're super centrist compared to what they were supposed to be, and they don't really work for working people anymore.
They're not the party of Labour. They need to change their name.
Exactly.
Maybe the neoliberal party.
Exactly.
You've got the Lib Dems looking progressive, mate. Come on. That's not good for the Labour Party to make the Lib Dems look progressive.
Yeah, so did Labour used to be further to the left than Lib Dems?
Used to be.
That's just mad.
Years and years ago.
Like the Lib Dems are definitely more lefty than like Labour now.
I mean, on a national level, I think they're more. The biggest issue for me with the Lib Dems is just they're so split on opinion.
Yeah, who knows?
You have David Cameron. There's David Cameron-esque Tories who have moved because the Tory party have gone too far, and then you've got old Labour Party members. Although that's quite rare, they're going to us.
Coming to us.
Sorry, Labour, not. We vote for the colour of the wall behind us, which is conveniently a good backdrop. I'm actually wearing a Green Party t-shirt. I've got it. Okay. It's blue because I got to design the colour myself. The logo on it under this is green.
Yeah, you were the only one who got a blue one.
I had to preface the fact, I promise I'm not a secret covert Tory, which I also had to confirm when I wore Ralph Lauren going in. It was a Christmas gift, okay? As was this super dry hoodie. Please don't cancel me.
Your brands.
Yeah, I'm really bad for that, which is ironic.
So yeah, anything else on Andy Burnham you want to add?
Well, Gorton and Denton was interesting.
That was interesting.
Because obviously he did try and stand there and was told to piss off by Keir Starmer.
Yeah, it surprises me that he's been allowed, but I reckon Labour are just like realising now that they're completely fucked and everyone hates them, and that their best chance of a second term is to get rid of Keir Starmer and elect someone that people actually like. So
it's a hard one because I don't like him particularly either. Because as you say, I think he'll be very like Starmer. It's a case of also, once you've made the decision, obviously if he becomes the MP, right? He then also has to do a leadership race. Labour members will choose him, as will pretty much everyone. Like, if he goes into that, he's going to win it. No one really has an argument there.
Can you imagine if, after all of this, like, Reform win in Makerfield?
Oh, God, yeah.
So Andy Burnham doesn't even have a chance of becoming PM.
When that's the case, I will believe I think Angela Rayner will go for it.
Yeah, that would be good. I quite like her.
I don't.
I don't really know anything about her.
She got kicked out of a union for obvious reasons because she was housing and community. So the Birmingham Bing strikes obviously put her in a lot of fiery line.
She wasn't very supportive.
And she's a bit of a class traitor. She can hang around with Starmer's ilk. She isn't the left wing she promises to be. And whilst it's great that someone went up through the unions of a working class background, that was brilliant. It did take her long to switch up, unfortunately, and betray her class. And that made some of us quite angry. Again, a lesser evil than Keir Starmer, granted. But we spend all this time talking about lesser evils. But why aren't we talking about, this person is great? That's why we gave up on Labour, because it was always a case of who do we dislike the least.
And it felt, I think, especially in the last election, I feel like so many people didn't vote for Labour because they liked Labour. They voted for Labour because they hated the Tories.
Yes.
And you should be inspired to vote for someone based on their policies, not based on hatred for someone else and wanting to keep them out. But unfortunately, first past the post.
35% of the vote, over 60% of the seats.
Exactly.
So democracy, guys.
Yeah, it works so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sort of ends up that people you kind of have to vote for like the least worst option that has a chance of beating the worst option, which is rubbish.
It's a bit depressing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But yeah, and there was also obviously his parliamentary history. So he was one of the biggest drivers of PFIs, so bringing in private companies into the NHS.
Yeah.
And conveniently, shortly after the Lib Dems chose the Tories to the coalition and not Labour, it was an easier coalition, but they could have chosen against the Tories, right? But they didn't. They chose to form a coalition with the Tories. So Burnham was no longer in the party in government, he was in the opposition party, right? In 2010, he acknowledged PFIs were a mistake. But he is the one that introduced them as Health Secretary. And if he's all about public control, rather than saying the words public ownership, it suggests that if he could, he would do this more.
Yeah, well, and that is kind of his like business-friendly socialism thing that he's been doing. Like,
I think that's an oxymoron.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
saying a socialist has to hate every business, but to say you're business friendly, as in business first socialist, that kind of goes against socialism, right? And we're not talking communism level of socialism, because obviously that hates business altogether, as workers own everything, right? So I would say I'm a democratic socialist. So I believe in democracy. I don't believe in one party states.
No.
But I do believe workers should have a lot more power and say. I believe in unions to challenge companies.
Yeah.
I believe in worker-owned cooperatives. I believe in community interest companies run by the local community. And that's kind of where we are on it. And I don't think Andy Burnham is compatible with that. Yeah. I think he's still too soft left.
Yeah, I think having a load of private businesses who obviously have an interest in making money working on socialist schemes, it seems very contradictory, because isn't the kind of point of socialism that money is being reinvested back into the thing? And like if someone's skimming profit, that's not good.
Another thing that he's kind of flip-flopped on is proportional representation. So that obviously there's some different versions. I think the most used is the Holt system. But it basically, proportional representation it's a system of elections. There's slightly different types, but the overarching goal is that the number of seats in Parliament is exactly the same percentage of the vote. So say, I don't know, that the Tory party got 30%, I don't know why I'm using an example, got 30% of the vote, they would have 30% of the seats, rather than, as Labour did, with 35% of the vote, got 60% of the seats.
Yeah.
They won in 2024 with less votes than Corbyn lost with in 2017 and 2019. We had a historically low voting turnout. And even then, they got 60% of the seats with only 30% of the vote. As far as I'm concerned, that is a laugh in any kind of concept of democracy.
And I think
he won't change that. But
no, and the thing that's so great with proportional representation as well, which is something like my dad always complains about and says it will never work, but I think it's brilliant because it requires you, so you don't end up with these like massive majority governments. Pretty much everything is coalition, and it requires so much greater cooperation with all of the different political spectrums. Yeah, you might want something that's super left wing, but then you'll end up having to sort of collaborate with the more right wing parties, and you'll make something that's a little bit more centrist, which isn't brilliant if you're a lefty like us and you want things, but it is a lot more sort of democratic in terms of you're not going to have this small percentage of like, I don't know, 30% or 35% of the public voted for reform, and now therefore they're able to do these like crazy things like kicking out all migrants, or I don't know, scrapping the ECHR. Like, they wouldn't be able to do that under proportional representation.
No, because the other parties would limit it, as is representative of the people.
Exactly.
The reason, obviously, a lot of the issues are happening is because people don't feel represented by Parliament, because they feel like their votes are wasted.
And so many people
that's
don't
why
vote, like, especially in local elections. Like, the turnout was completely rubbish. Like, I don't know what it was like in Gorton and Denton, because I think that was a bit higher than normal, but around here, it's normally about 25%. Like, it's like,
really bad.
Like 3 in 4 people just not bothering to vote. It's just crazy.
I voted in multiple local elections in multiple areas.
I vote in every local election, every single one. I always vote.
That is what we like to hear, guys. Make sure whenever you get a chance to vote for whatever it is, vote.
Yes. Okay, right, let's do like a bit of a conclusion-y type thing, because time is a ticking.
Yes, this was our first podcast of the Queer Politics podcast. If you have any questions at all, let us know in the comments below, and we will get right back to you. One of us will. We'll coordinate who does which messages and how that'll set up.
If anyone sends us messages.
Yes, that's assuming we get messages.
Assuming anyone's actually listening to us just rambling on about Andy Burnham for an hour.
Yes, so we will have a YouTube.
Yes.
That we will set up.
Yeah.
And we will possibly have a TikTok.
Yeah, we should get a TikTok.
And
we'll try and get this on Spotify as well.
Yes, yeah. We'll try and get as many platforms as we can. And if you've seen it, you're from the first platform. So congratulations, you're one of our first viewers. I guess Jim would be the first viewer because he walked in the background.
Yeah, and hello to listeners from the Maidstone Green Party.
our literal family.
Who I think will be our listener base for quite a long time. Our key listener base.
Yes, we might get